major developments tonight involving the case against Sean Diddy Combs, what he decided in court today, and what this now means, the move coming just 4 days before his trial is set to begin. Here's Aaron Katursky.
Tonight, Sean Combs makes it official. He's rejecting the government's offer to plead guilty and spare himself the possibility of a prolonged term in prison. When asked if he turned down the offer, Combs answered, "Yes, I do, Your Honor," as he stood in a baggy beige jail uniform. Terms were not disclosed, but prosecutors did say a plea could result in a shorter sentence for Combs than if he's convicted.
Everyone knew he was the devil. He's been the devil for 30 years. He has been covered and protected by not only Clive Davis, but Lucian Grange. He was selected to be the demon that he is, to keep the culture in line so the industry could continue for all of its precious jewels. We have too many lost. The list of lost is ridiculous, and everyone knows Diddy was selected for this job. He's the Judas.
Ever felt aggrieved and targeted by the government? He feels an obligation to those people to say, you know what? Maybe I can break the model. Maybe I can show the world that a black man can win, in federal court. And I think he probably is the only person I know of who might be able to actually accomplish that.
What made you come here to support Puff?
He supported Puff because he's innocent, and I'm wholeheartedly believing he's innocent, and I knew he's innocent. So
you said you know he's innocent.
1,000%.
Just when it felt like Diddy's world couldn't spiral any further, one man stepped in with the kind of energy that didn't come from a place of concern or sympathy.
Well, Bill and Sade, accepting a plea agreement would mean that Sean Combs would have to admit to trafficking and force. And today he made it very clear that was not going to happen. Diddy maintained all along these encounters involved consenting adults and plans to take his chances that a jury agrees.
Puffy invited me for weeks, asking me to come and teach him how to, wanted me to be his acting coach for a while. Go there and he's sitting around just looking. I'm like, okay, what's the material you want to work on? He's just looking at me. Then next thing you know, okay, hey, will you help me? I want to hear your music. So I come over there and I play the music. And he's sitting there just looking at me, like waiting. Okay. So then my assistant was like, he wants to hang out with you next week. And I was like, for what? He's like, I think he's trying to f*** you.
Do you still think that, because there is this public perception, that there are celebrity tapes involved in this case?
No.
Do you still think that there are minors involved in this case?
I'm certain no.
Okay.
And again, when you say this case, we're talking the criminal case.
The criminal case.
In the criminal, I know that in the criminal case, no.
It came from pure humiliation, because while the rest of the industry ducked, avoided, and no-commented their way through the chaos, 50 Cent walked into the scene like he'd been waiting for this downfall to unfold, like it was personal. And for him, it always has been.
Would you be open to a plea bargain?
Well, it's not up to me. It's up to Mr. Combs, and I don't see it happening.
Why?
Because he believes he's innocent. He believes he's innocent. And what's more, he believes that he needs to stand up, not just for himself, for his family, and for everybody who's been targeted by the federal government.
Sean Diddy Combs back behind bars, a magistrate judge denying him bail, saying that there were no conditions that she could conceive of that would make her confident that he would appear again for other court appearances. The judge saying, my concern is this is a crime that happens behind closed doors.
What happens is if people go into a trial believing the firepower on the prosecution is so strong, I mean, let's say on a scale of 1 to 100, it's a 95 that it's so strong, but it goes down to an 88. That helps the defense because everybody goes in thinking, wow, they're going to prove this, and they're going to prove this, and they're going to prove this, and all of a sudden, none of it's there. I think that actually helps the defense.
The internet barely had time to digest the latest legal bombshell when 50 hit post. No caption needed, just the image. A slick, AI-generated version of himself, suited up in a courtroom, flanked by files stamped Diddy.
Elaborate, sometimes days-long
parties by coercing victims through drugs, threats, and manipulation. They claim to have video evidence, and some of the accusations echo details from over 70 civil lawsuits filed against Combs over the last 30 years.
You guys weren't even 18 years old. You couldn't escape. You couldn't get out of there. There were so many times I tried to intervene. There was a lot of times.
This is going to be such a massive trial, like maybe the biggest Hollywood trial. God knows which way it's going to go. Is it going to go on for weeks?
Oh, for sure, weeks.
At trial, Combs will ditch the jail garb and wear ordinary clothes. As his lawyers argue, the evidence shows consenting adults being intimate in their own way. The decision guarantees Combs will face trial beginning just 4 days from now that will test whether one of music's most prolific figures used his power, wealth, and fame to exploit both women and men for decades.
No, the deck is stacked against him. They've got a ton of evidence. Take the plea deal, dude. Just take it.
Well, my guess is that, because we don't know the deal of the plea deal. At least I don't think we do.
True.
And I think he also feels an obligation to people in general. Maybe it's black people, maybe it's white people, maybe it's anybody who's...
Back up a little bit, please.
How can you support your father? How do you support him moving forward?
The caption under it, I'm not sure if I'm supposed to be laughing at this, but he wasn't just laughing. He was leading the laugh track. Because 50's post wasn't about memes, it was a declaration. A message to the world. I told y'all.
He did, and when the judge did, Diddy, who was sitting at the defense table with his attorneys, did not show any signs of emotion. He took a sip of water before he was led out of the courtroom by the U.S. Marshals. Now, his lawyers have vowed to fight this. They are going to be back in court on Wednesday before the judge who will oversee this trial and try to get Diddy to be released.
The last hearing before Sean Combs' trial starts, when he walked into federal court today, he appeared to be looking for his family. They've pretty much been at all of the hearings that I've been to, but there was no presence of his sons or his mother or his sister who had previously been at those hearings.
There's an arrest coming. There's actually 2 arrests that are already made. There's a 3rd one coming. I don't know why people are sitting on this. I'm ready. I see that some people are not. I've been ready. A lot of you are ready. Like, let's get this over with, right?
And then came the second post, and this one sent the internet into orbit. 12 different versions of 50 Cent, each dressed as a different juror, sitting in judgment over Diddy's courtroom fate, all with that same look, amused, unbothered, absolutely ready to convict. This wasn't trolling. This was a public execution by humiliation, and the whole world was watching. And here's where I want to pull you in, because depending on who you ask, this is either karma or cruelty. Do you think 50's mockery is justified after everything that's come out? Or is he turning someone else's downfall into a one-man circus? Drop your take in the comments. And I'm not just saying that. I reply to every real comment I see on these because your perspective actually matters in a moment like this.
His lawyers had argued that he had made good faith efforts by showing up in New York, ready to surrender to face these charges, but prosecutors said that he could not be trusted, that he has a history of trying to intimidate witnesses, including some who are going to be witnesses in this case. They urged the judge to remand him.
Looking at, to my mind, that's one of the bigger hurdles in selecting a jury this coming week, is that there is, at least anecdotally, when I talk to people, they have that opinion, strongly held opinion, that there's celebrity tapes, that they've kind of conflated Epstein, and you mentioned Ghislaine Maxwell and all of these things into Diddy. There's this idea that somehow that this is Epstein redux or something.
The biggest takeaway for me is that both sides expect to have all of this done in the matter of 3 days. Now, given just how high profile this trial is, I was kind of stunned that they seem very confident that they will be able to seat a jury in that amount of time.
Now let's be clear, this moment didn't come out of nowhere. 50's had smoke for Diddy for years. He's dropped subtle warnings, cryptic captions, and sideways jabs that people used to laugh off. He told fans not to trust Diddy's image, not to fall for the curated lifestyle, not to ignore the red flags. And now that it's all unraveling, he's not just sitting back saying, "I told you so." He's grabbing the mic, standing on the table, and reminding every label, every fan, every executive who protected Diddy for decades that silence has a price, and he's cashing in. This isn't petty. It's personal. Because for 50, this trial isn't just about justice. It's about dragging an entire culture of secrecy into the light, even if he has to roast it all the way there. Long before Diddy's name became courtroom headline material, 50 Cent had already planted the seeds of suspicion. And he didn't whisper. He broadcasted. He told us to watch who we idolize. He warned people, straight up, to steer clear of Diddy's infamous parties. Not just once, not as a throwaway line, but repeatedly across interviews, live appearances, even in his books. He'd smile, throw a jab, then say just enough to make people uncomfortable without breaking any legal line. And back then, everyone laughed. Said it was just 50 being 50, wrote it off as trolling, hating, jealousy. But now that those private party allegations are being cited in federal documents, with details about drugs, surveillance, and women being trafficked across state lines, it's starting to feel less like shade and more like a warning we ignored. This isn't some record label beef from the early 2000s. This isn't G-Unit versus Bad Boy. This is deeper than royalties and street cred. 50's issue with Diddy always had a layer that felt personal. Something about the way he spoke on him felt less like rivalry and more like disgust. Like he saw through the suits and champagne and didn't buy the billionaire persona for 1 second. There were constant jabs, some subtle, others not. In one interview, 50 literally said Diddy gave him off energy. In another, he smirked and said, "I don't rock with those parties." And when asked if he ever saw Diddy as a threat, "Nah, Puff ain't built like that." Now imagine seeing the man you never trusted finally getting exposed. Not in rumors, not in blogs, but in federal court. Of course, 50 posted those memes. That wasn't trolling. That was vindication. For years, Diddy was untouchable. He was hip-hop royalty, business mogul, king of the vibe, and no matter what allegations came up, mysterious deaths, NDA-covered settlements, strange headlines, they always seemed to vanish. And 50 hated that. He hated how the industry protected him. He hated how fans defended him. He hated how powerful men could rewrite the narrative just by smiling on the red carpet. So now that Diddy's empire is shaking, now that people are finally listening to victims, 50 isn't being petty. He's being loud on purpose. Because silence is what protected Diddy. And 50, he's using mockery as a megaphone. And this is where I want to ask you, do you think 50 Cent was just being petty all these years? Or was he calling this out long before the world was ready to hear it? Tell me in the comments, and I'll reply to you directly like always. Because, depending on your lens, 50's either a troll, or he's the only one who saw this storm coming before it hit. And I'll be honest, I think he saw more than he ever said. Because now, all the cryptic jokes are receipts. This isn't a rap beef anymore. It's a slow-motion demolition of one man's empire. And 50 Cent is on the front row with popcorn and a flamethrower. He's not letting people look away. He's not giving the industry a chance to spin this into some clean, polished PR cycle. He's making sure we see it, feel it, laugh at it, until it stings. Because this isn't just about Diddy's fall. It's about what everyone ignored to keep him standing for so long. In the beginning, Diddy's people moved like a unit. He was the untouchable boss, the gatekeeper, a man whose presence alone could shift a room, lock a deal, make or break your career. But now, that loyalty is cracking at the foundation. The same. Celebrities who used to swarm his parties, pose for pictures in his section, and publicly call him Big Bro, are eerily quiet. Instagram captions are missing. Birthday shoutouts? Nowhere. Even his closest industry allies are ghosting his name from interviews like it's radioactive. And it's not subtle, because when you've been at the center of the industry for 3 decades and no one defends, you and your name hits a federal lawsuit, that's not coincidence. That's self-preservation. While Diddy's support network evaporates, 50 Cent is doing the opposite. He's expanding. Every post, every caption, every meme. He's not just clowning Diddy. He's dragging everyone who ever sat quietly next to him while the world whispered. You knew. You were there. You stayed quiet. That's the new subtext in 50's commentary. And it hits harder than any op-ed ever could. Because 50's not afraid to say the thing most blogs won't touch. The industry didn't just ignore the rumors. It protected them. So when Diddy's empire finally cracked, 50 wasn't just mocking the fall. He was exposing the scaffolding. The assistants, executives, collaborators, and socialites who let this go unchecked. He's holding the whole circle accountable, and people are feeling the pressure. One of the wildest parts of Diddy's collapse is how quiet the brands have been. No statements, no distancing, no denials. They're not defending him, but they're not publicly cutting ties either. That's because they're hoping to ride this out behind the scenes. Keep the partnerships on hold, scrub a few tweets, maybe wait until the news cycle moves on, but 50 Cent is not letting them get away with it. Every time a new sponsor or collaborator tries to go silent, he jumps on it, calls it out, tags the brand, even clowns entire agencies that built their image around Diddy's persona. Because 50 knows the truth. Silence is a brand strategy, and he's making sure that silence costs them something. Behind the scenes, Diddy's legal team is in crisis mode. There are whispers of settlements, multiple lawsuits stacking, investigators sniffing into his inner circle. And inside, sources have already suggested that more witnesses are preparing to testify, maybe even flip. Meanwhile, which is ahead of every headline, he's posting before major outlets do. He's shaping the public reaction before court transcripts even drop. And with every joke, every meme, every scathing caption, he's reframing Diddy from mogul to meme. And honestly, he's doing it so effectively, it's becoming impossible to separate the legal drama from the mockery that's rewriting it in real time. Let's be real, this isn't just a celebrity meltdown anymore. It's not just about Diddy versus the law. It's about the system that protected him, and how 50 Cent is blowing holes straight through it with every upload. Because here's what people are finally saying out loud. For years, Diddy moved like he was above accountability, behind velvet ropes, inside penthouses, surrounded by yes men and legal teams. And when people whispered about the dark stuff, they got silenced, mocked, discredited. Now, 50 is forcing the spotlight back on them, making sure those whispers turn into evidence, pressure, and public demand. And here's the wildest part. Even if Diddy's legal team somehow defends him in court, he's already lost the public trial. And 50 Cent made sure of it. Because the way we talk about this case now isn't cold or corporate. It's emotional. It's raw. It's being fueled by humor. Yes, but also truth. And that brings me to this. Do you think 50 is helping the public stay focused on justice by keeping the pressure on? Or is he just stirring chaos for revenge? Drop your take in the comments. I want to hear what side of this you're on, and as always, I'll be in. They're replying. Especially to the people who keep it real. Because from where I'm sitting, this doesn't feel like a troll war anymore. It feels like 50's holding the entire industry to the fire, and nobody's safe. Diddy's facing the lawsuits, the raids, the headlines. But let's not kid ourselves. He's not the only one sweating. Because the moment those sealed documents hit the news, the moment his freak-offs became common knowledge, and especially when 50 Cent started clowning him in front of 30 million people, a whole list of powerful people got very, very quiet. Not just former collaborators, not just party guests, not just industry friends, executives, artists, publicists, all suddenly realizing that if 50 Cent really wants to go there, he might not stop at just Diddy. And the terrifying thing, he knows exactly who's been in those rooms. 50 isn't just roasting Diddy, he's implicating a culture. When he reposts old footage of other celebs laughing with Diddy at exclusive parties, he's not being random. He's sending a signal. You were there. You knew something. You stayed. Silent. And now those clips are going viral, under very different captions than when they first aired. The comments aren't just LOL. They're, where were you when this happened? Why didn't you speak up? Who else was involved? And here's where I want your thoughts. Do you think 50 is intentionally setting up a wider takedown, or are people just reading too much into his trolling? Drop your answer in the comments, because you know I'll reply. And I'm asking seriously. I've never seen trolling hit this hard and feel this strategic. Because if 50's just being petty, that's one thing. But if he's being calculated, he's dragging a whole ecosystem down with Diddy. Brick by brick, let's talk about what's really happening in the shadows. Since Diddy's case went public, there's been a slow trickle of rumors. Other celebrities who allegedly attended those infamous parties, other insiders who might get named next, other lawsuits being prepped behind closed doors. And 50, he hasn't dropped names. But he's liked some very specific posts. He's reshared some very specific clips. And when fans speculate about who else might be next, he never corrects them. He fuels it, subtly, smirkingly, like he knows what's coming and he's already chosen his next target. And that's what's got the industry shaking. Not the court, not the charges, but the fact that 50 Cent is narrating the downfall and nobody can stop him. For decades, this is how the game worked. People knew. They whispered, they avoided, but they never exposed. Because in this business, silence is currency. You stay quiet, you keep your seat at the table, you speak up, you get blackballed. But what 50's doing now? It's dangerous. And that's why it matters. He's mocking not just the man, but the entire culture that allowed the man to thrive. And by refusing to shut up, by refusing to look away, by dragging Diddy over and over again, he's making it clear. If you were part of that culture, your silence might not protect you anymore. The question on everyone's mind right now isn't, will Diddy get convicted? It's, whose name is going to get pulled in next? And 50's sitting back, meme ready, knowing exactly how to time his next move. This isn't just about getting revenge. It's about pulling off what no media outlet, no documentary, no expose ever could, a real-time unraveling of the most protected men in entertainment. He's not using lawyers, he's using followers, he's not using evidence. He's using influence, and that might be even more effective. For decades, fame worked like a force field. You could be messy, abusive, manipulative, but if you had the money, the image, and the right PR team, nothing stuck. The machine erased headlines. The labels made calls, the lawyers buried stories before they could breathe. And Diddy, he was the blueprint of that system. Untouchable, glamorous, smiling in every photo like the allegations bouncing around him didn't exist. But now, that illusion has cracked. And it's not just because of court filings or accusers stepping forward. It's because 50 Cent refused to let it slide. Let's be real. Nobody expected 50 Cent to become the loudest voice for public accountability. This is a man known for chaos, for trolling, for being petty just for fun, but somehow, in this moment, the pettiness is the point. He's saying, the things the press is afraid to print. He's dragging the people who usually get away clean, and he's doing it with humor so sharp, people don't know whether to laugh or flinch. And here's the twist that nobody saw coming. Fed might be doing more to shake this industry than the court ever could, because when he posts a meme, people don't just scroll, they share it. And suddenly the truth, or at least the suspicion, spreads faster than any legal process can handle. This part matters. People aren't waiting for press conferences anymore. They're not relying on journalists to tell them what's real. They're watching 50's Instagram. They're seeing who he calls out, who he reposts, who he tags, who he doesn't tag. And it's not just entertainment, it's shaping public judgment. In an age where courts move slow, but memes move fast, 50 Cent has somehow become a cultural filter for guilt. That's wild, and that's real. This trial, this cultural moment, it isn't just about Diddy. It's about whether or not the era of untouchable celebrity is finally over. Because if a man like Diddy can be investigated, sued, exposed, and publicly humiliated by another major figure in the game, then the message is clear. No amount of legacy, no number of hits, no endorsement deal can save you from the consequences of what you did behind closed doors. And if 50 Cent keeps pressing, that consequence might not stop. At Diddy, it might stretch across industries, decades, and entire music empires. That's what this whole saga has become. It's not just the fall of one man, it's the unmasking of a culture. And the loudest voice dragging it into the light isn't a lawyer or a network. It's 50 Cent through memes, through mockery, through posts that blur the line between comedy and indictment. He's holding the mirror up, and every day more people are being forced to look. So let me ask you this one last time. Do you think this moment is the beginning of something bigger, or will the system find a way to silence it like it always does? Drop your truth in the comments, and you already know I'm there reading, replying, and keeping this conversation alive no matter how uncomfortable it gets. Because if 50's showing us anything right now, it's that sometimes the most brutal form of justice doesn't come from a courtroom, it comes from public humiliation. And a man who refuses to shut up when everyone else is too afraid to speak. If you've been watching this play out and thinking, this feels different, you're not alone. Diddy's trial might be the headline, but what's happening underneath is way bigger than one man. And 50 Cent, he might have just ripped the mask off an entire industry. So if you're still here, still watching, still thinking about who might be next, like this video, subscribe, and hit that bell. Because you already know, I follow every update, every twist, and every comment. Drop your thoughts below. And yes, I'm replying to all of you like always. We're not done talking about this, not even close.